to improve the health and wellness of Nashville by providing equitable access to coordinated patient-centered care, supporting tomorrow's caregivers, and translating science into clinical practice.
Thank you. And it looks like on the agenda there's an opportunity for public comment. We wanted to see if there was anyone. And provide, but just get that started before we dive deep in the specifics, if that's okay. I imagine there's just some general understanding questions that we have. Okay. You are on it.
Sorry.
No.
I'm looking for something, sorry.
Okay.
While she's looking, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm confused about timeframes.
Yes.
Okay, so on the agenda, it says CEO performance evaluation FY 23, July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Is that what we're,
Yes.
so we're 9 months behind in approving something that at least 2/3 of the current members of this ad hoc committee were not even here for?
Correct. The time frame is correct. I would defer to the board chair who chose the committee on any of that information, but I definitely hear and understand what you are saying. And is that an issue that makes you not want to move
No.
forward with any questions, or
No,
do we need
but
to
it leads to
reschedule?
the next issue of kind of calibrating back into an orderly process in
Right.
which, because we're coming soon on to June 24,
And will be time for the next one,
and
yes.
will we be doing the assessment on a timely basis then? Which seems appropriate to get us back into kilter.
Correct. That would be the goal, is to get the evaluation for fiscal year 23 done and then help prepare for 24, but make sure we're doing it within the accurate, appropriate time frame, for sure.
Okay, good.
I believe that's the will of the committee. I can confidently say that.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Stevenson is getting close. Okay. Christy, did you have anything?
Yeah, question. So now that we have appointed / volunteer and maybe voluntold some of us for the committee.
Yeah.
The question I have is, will we be the committee going forward? So I think that there is, a benefit to some level of consistency in the committee, and definitely making sure there's this historical, aspect of this, which it apparently is represented by you and I think Frank here. But I do think that would be important to have some consistency in the committee, and maybe a regular, timely schedule by which we would be meeting again. That way we stay on track, and then don't have to repeat the basics of the knowledge dissemination. And we can kind of make sure that we're even pushing this to the next level. So how do we get better on the performance evaluation? How do we dig deeper on some of those things going forward? I think so, just to underscore that.
Yes. Board chair is here. Thank you. So we just, we just started. Mr. Lester asked a question about the timing of this evaluation, it being for fiscal year 2023, and he and Christy were not on the board during that time. And so I defer to you on that one as selecting the committee. And then there was also a goal from this meeting where we could wrap up the fiscal year 23 evaluation to make sure we're on time for 24 in June, July. And I think we can agree on that going forward. And so we were just kind of in the open comments section of this right now, if you had anything you wanted to provide or share, questions for the committee.
I appreciate the work that you and Mr. Manson had, previous work you all have done and continue to do. So we want to make sure we pick up the ball and keep it rolling. We've had years where we have been severely behind.
Okay.
And it does not do our CEO or the hospital any justice when we are behind 2 and 3 years in terms of evaluation. So we're not as far behind this go round. So that's the good news. But we do have to move. We do have to move quickly so we can have fair evaluation, which he and the hospital deserves. And so this is just a continuation of that committee. So the committee was already established. Some people rolled off the board. We have new people on the committee, and we're just continuing that work. So we'll go back and look at the progress and evaluation and the metrics and move forward. So, and thank you for your leadership.
Oh, no, thank you for the opportunity. And I guess I hope we all had a chance to look at the update from the January 2023 meeting, the evaluation questions, and then the employment agreement, just so we could have an understanding of kind of what was done with the last committee and moving forward. Because it looks like last year the committee met, they set a series of goals and raised recommendations for fiscal year 22 and rated that based on that 5% percentage. And then for FY 23, they gave some recommendations for goals and raised percentages that would be for us to decide if we want to stick with those recommendations, if there are any modifications to the language or the percentage. It's my understanding that is what we can dive deep in on now. If everybody is ready to move forward, we can just go in order, or if there's any information you'd want to hear from hospital leadership that is here before we start.
So I have a quick question, just so I understand the process. Maybe outline what that looks like. So our goal is for today to do X, since we're new. Is there a second meeting that we have that follows up and allows us maybe to do research, ask questions, and or receive information from executive team, and then we come back to the table? Or can you just walk through that piece?
Yes. So last year we did it in one meeting. We met and we looked at the recommendations from the year before, and weighted them based on the percentage, and then did the goals. It is my understanding that if we want to extend it to another meeting, today we talk, get background understanding, figure out what we have questions, comments, concerns on. There could be a second meeting where you could see the new set of goals in writing and vote, just figure out, do we need another meeting? I think we continue to bump into that timing issue, but I don't think anything is wrong with having a few meetings to get it right so there's full transparency and we can move forward.
So, again, I live in a constant state of cloudiness, as I'm about to concede. So today we are ostensibly attempting to approve what you all discussed back last year?
No, so last year we did the FY 2022 goals and recommendations. We put the percentage in there that would go towards his bonus.
Correct.
And then the committee also set recommendations for fiscal year 23. This year, what we're meeting about now, as far as goals that this committee can consider and raise recommendations, but it's not a mandate.
And just to be clear, the end of fiscal year 23 is when? June of this coming year.
This past
of this current year. June of
June
last year.
2023.
So we're approving from last year.
Correct. That's why we were saying we were
Okay.
Like almost 9
Yes.
months ago.
So
Yes,
it
that's-
strikes me that, again,
9
from
months
my vantage point, I'm going to agree to support the effort of what you all did at that meeting in January, I think, of 23.
Yeah.
Which was the recommendations for that year. But that our goal ought to be now to ensure our understanding of what we are going to approve at the end of this June for the last 8 months, 9 months, continuing through June, so that we are up to date and we have an understanding with the appropriate amount of information and feedback from staff if necessary to make the right determination about meeting all of the goals.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. Question, since we are just approving 8 months late or whatever, 9 months late, was the chairman receiving the recommended pay raise and bonus all this time?
No, my understanding is that it's backdated, and so they would have to go back, but I would again defer to finance to let us know what is correct. Oh, okay, yes. Okay, she's saying it's backdated.
Backdated meaning,
He's asking,
has he been paid his bonus and pay increase from last June 23rd, as was recommended in the summary, or will,
I
if
don't
we
think-
approve it today,
Yeah,
does
they-
he get
he
the
would get
entire
back pay.
amount?
He would not have been paid that amount because the board hadn't approved
Okay,
it.
understood.
Yeah, so we would owe it to him, but he hadn't been paid as of yet. So it is when we're late on the evaluations, it's a disservice. It really is. So I agree with you. Setting the parameter for 2024 should be a high priority in this meeting, and then yes, I agree with you on that.
So is there anything that we as a committee as a board should be concerned about since we haven't paid him with regard to any type of interest on the money that he could have been earning, et cetera, for the last 9 months since we haven't paid this gentleman?
I'll probably ask Bruce to speak to that. So what?
Yeah, and that's why I came in here, because I heard the question.
I need a mic, I'm sorry.
Here's one over here.
Just take care of the whole seat at the table. What do you think you can get?
Yeah, I'll just say, historically with Dr. Webb, his evals have been late. And so we do reset it so he gets that raise effective back to the July 1st start date, but he doesn't get interest on it, Christie, or he has not gotten interest on that in the past. He does get a lump sum catch up, and then we pay him going forward. That's been our history since I've been here.
Is there any, I don't know if we have an attorney here, but is there any legal liability that we have by not paying a man for 9 months and not giving him interest? If not, somebody should look into that.
Yeah, we can.
If you didn't pay me for 9 months, I might have a problem with that. And I would expect some type of interest payment as due with normal notes. When we have a contract in financial services, there's an interest rate accredited to that amount. So just for legal purposes, we should probably look into that.
Can I just, for clarity,
Thank you.
just for clarity, it's not like he's not getting paid, he's not getting the increase. So if you guys give him a 5%, whatever it ends up being, that's what he's not been receiving. He's been receiving his
The
regular.
8.5%.
Right.
Correct,
So he's
is
missed
what
out on
the
that.
contract says.
Correct. Whatever that is, yeah. He would have missed out on the interest on that.
Okay. Again, and I understand it may not be, we can buy a foot long with it, but I'm just saying I think we should, for legal purposes, make sure that we're consistent, we're doing the right thing, and we would like a legal interpretation of what we should do here, I think would be helpful.
Definitely. I would definitely ask that HR and legal give us clarity on those parameters, which looks like we're going to have a second meeting. So have that at the next meeting. We would appreciate that information. Okay. So as we said, looking at the doc entitled CEO Update, I was kind of using this as the home base. We see what the goals are for 23, and I just wanted to go through them with you all to see overall, when you look at them, if you've reviewed them, do you think this is the area, we're hitting on the right areas to accurately give a performance review? Is there something that's missing? And then maybe have the opportunity to dive deep, because I imagine there may be one or two that we get to. But I would start with Mr. Lesser.
And I think it would be helpful for me if you and the board chair would discuss how you arrived at these and help us understand the applicability of these for his review.
Okay. Okay, would you like to start? You want me to start? Right, you're looking at me.
No.
You have a little bit more institutional knowledge of this, so I think that's why I'm leaning on you a bit
Yeah.
harder. Last year, it
So-
was myself and Dr. Fagan. So,
No, I get it.
Yeah.
So the evaluation process 5 years ago was very broad. Okay, we had some individuals on the board, particularly on the committee, who said, "Listen, we really need to have something we're pointing at in terms of measurement. And we want to tie those things into the increase, whether he meets those metrics. And what are those things that particularly these four things that you would look at any hospital, you know, so obviously financial, quality of care, those kind of things. And so those were the things that were put in place by that committee. Now, if we want to undo that or redo it or revisit, we certainly have the prerogative to do so. But again, 5 years ago, these were the things that we said were important in terms of evaluating the CEO. Again, some of the things when we discussed in terms of revenue generation and those kind of things in Charlotte the clinic and some of those other things, we understood that some of that was going to take time. Some things are out of the CEO's control in terms of if we get 40 million from the city, if we get 52 million, you know, we can't rate him low if we get less money from the city, right? He's certainly not the mayor or the council. So, but that's kind of the parameters of how we got to this space and using these evaluation metrics. And so he does a self-evaluation, which you all have saw, based on these metrics. And then we look at that, and then we also can lean in terms of whether we think those criteria were met and weighted percentage. So.
Have we had, so this is something we created. This is a self-created.
Yes.
Okay. Have we, I see we have used some firms like Pearl Meyer as an example and B.E. Smith. Have we asked any of our third parties or maybe even other metro entities to see a copy of what their CEO evaluation, and I understand the actual specifics will be very different, but I think it would be helpful to say, what does this, you know, entity do? How do they evaluate their CPO? What do their forms look like and their process? Again, collecting best practices, I think would be helpful here. Not that this didn't work or can't work, but just again, let's kick the tires and make this the very best. If we're going to be on a committee, let's make it the best thing that we possibly can. I personally found some things that I had questionable that didn't seem to be as descriptive and deep as I felt like I would have wanted the language to be. As an example, goals and objectives in the area of finance, meet financial goals. I'm not really sure what that means. So, you know, the descriptiveness, maybe at the point in time which these were written, the committee and our board understood what that means, but I was just trying to understand as written what that meant as an example.
Let me make a suggestion and see if this makes any sense. I want to bifurcate. We have to look at what was,
Right.
and I think we should go ahead and give the consideration to that and have a vote on that. But I think getting back to Christie's introduction of some issues is moving forward, how we're moving forward. So I would suggest that we look at approving or disapproving what is on the table,
FY23, yes.
and taking care of that, and then having discussion about, okay, moving forward, how are we going to do this?
What does that look? Yeah.
And what does it look like?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and to lean into that a little bit more, not only should we do that, we're obligated to do that. You can't change the rules in the middle of the
Yeah.
game,
Right.
right? So we're 9 months past when it's due, and we've already agreed on what the standard would be. And so you're absolutely right. We need to take care of 23, and then we need to set whatever standards we want as a committee for evaluation for 24. And we're in front of that now because we've got a few months, until June 30th, right? So we're ahead of the game. But I agree with you, Ms. Lester, that we probably should go ahead and approve what the work that the committee had started. And in fairness, we are behind. And so, and then set those standards that's more meaty, I think is what you're saying, in terms of what we want to see out of this evaluation.
Definitely. No, I would definitely agree. And I think there's some homework for all of us as far as background information we'll need for the looking forward. But right now, we can just look at the evaluation sheet and just go through the goals, look at what the committee last year recommended, see if we agree with that or if there are any modifications with that. Okay, so the first area that was brought up was the key result area was growth. Develop the new clinic on Clarksville Highway, recruit and develop the physician and clinician team, complete the building project on time and within budget. The measurement criteria for that was physicians on board and a physical structure completed. The time frame was the FY 2023 year. And so when you look at the comments, we're able to see where they, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I saw someone raising their hand. We have comments over here. I didn't know if you want me to read through all the comments, if you just wanted to highlight the concerns. The recommended percentage for that is 3%.
I had just a quick question, so I just want to make sure that I understand. This is the imaging center that we have been talking about that just opened. Is that right? I just want to make sure that I am tying it correctly.
Yes.
So this should have been completed by June 30th, 2023, and we just cut the ribbon.
Yes.
Okay, so is it fair to say that we're behind 6 months on this?
It is fair to say
On the
that.
timeline of, again, I'm just reading.
Right, based on the.
Develop new clinic on Clarksville, recruit, develop physicians, complete building project on time within budget. So I think we can really, if we're really wanting to evaluate this, the first question I have is like, complete building project on time. That didn't happen, right? Fair. Was it within budget?
And that's what we would defer.
Right.
To the team on and get an understanding of maybe why it wasn't completed on time, if you want to consider that in the weighted, or if you view that as a reason to decrease the percentage. That's the conversation that we can have.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that, we can get really lost in the weeds here. I just want to make sure that if we've got less than an hour, we can't get through the first one. But the actual goals are, did we complete the project on time? 1, is it in budget? 2, measurement criteria, physicians on board and physical structure completed. Physicians on board, recruit and develop physician and clinician team. I'm not sure the metric we were going to use for that, but to me, those are your 3 metrics, right? And I think you can speak to that. We can talk about why it was or why it wasn't, but I do think we need to answer the basic questions. Correct. Those are important to me. So if y'all can address that, is that okay if they address that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
The building, actually, we entered into the contract probably 3 years ago with the company El Piso. And a lot of the delay for construction was the red iron. And that's the actual core of the building, the steel that holds the building up. So that started the delay of that whole building. And then from that point on, it was more of an electrical component that we had to get that had to be manufactured specifically for the building. When the supply chain hit and COVID came, that really slowed us down, and we did not get that component. All the delays that we had were attributed to the actual shell of the building. When we took over our part, once the shell was up and set up and everything, the part that I was responsible for, which is the interior part of that building, which was the first floor and the second floor, we completed within an 8-week period of time. So we got our part done, but we couldn't get our part done until the structure of the building was actually constructed, which we went as far as we hired our own general manager, construction manager. And what ended up happening was our construction manager actually facilitated the completion of the building. Without him being there, the building would not be completed today. So we went out and, because we have someone on our staff who's a general contractor that has done commercial builds before, we sent him there to help them finalize that building over the last year and a half. So I think we did everything that we could to help push. If he wasn't there, the building would not be completed today.
Did that answer your question about the building part? What about you, Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Are you able to speak to the budget or the building out the physician
Yes,
team?
Yeah, the budget.
Okay.
Well, we were within budget. What we initially set, the amount that we set, we were within our budget. Actually, we were on budget.
Okay. And then the physician team.
We have the physicians already hired. We have the staff and the providers. They're actually currently working over at 1919, and they would just be moving over. We've hired, it's been about 8 months to a year that they've been on staff working.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions about that? Okay. Board Chair, anything?
I would just add that, we built a $70 million residence hall on our campus. I was responsible for that to some degree. But if it was delayed, that was on the contractors, not on me, right? They were penalized financially for any delays. We had to do some relief on that because of supply chain, particularly around COVID. And so when they came up with this metric, I'm not sure why they would even consider penalizing the CEO for a construction project where we're just a tenant, right? We weren't leading the project. We weren't, so I mean, I just want to put that on record that may have been, maybe I'm flawed in terms of a component of evaluation. I would never, ever want to be penalized as the tenant. We're the tenant for a build out that obviously, we didn't pay for the building. We didn't pay the contractors or any of those things. I mean, a lot of, we're the tenant. So I just want to put that on record because that could give a black eye to something that's not a responsibility of really the CEO. So.
And could I just add, Mr. Chairman, the CEO went above and beyond by hiring the general contractor, because there was things like the water tap. If our general contractor hadn't been there, they wouldn't have known that they needed to work with the city to actually get the water from the street into the building. That's the kind of knowledge that we brought to the table, that we were only really there to develop the envelope inside the building is what we were assigned to do. But we end up actually just building the whole building because we wanted to get it completed.
Do you know if there were any, did we receive any relief in terms of the delayed? I mean, did we start paying rent even before it was completed?
No,
or
we still haven't paid any rent.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay, and before we move forward, Ms. Lester alerted me to something we should consider. So last year, when we made the recommendations, it was based on a 10% increase. That performance part was a 10% increase. In the contract for this year, it is 5%. The recommended percentages on the CEO update doc, this one add up to 10%, which would be out of compliance with the current contract. So the total percentage would need to be out of 5. Is that clear? Yes. Isma? Okay.
For 24.
For 23, under his current contract, it says 5%.
Under
So-
23, so for 23, it's 5%, not 10%?
Dr. Webb's contract has always been that he receives what the rest of the facility receives.
Right.
We got a 5% on July 1st.
Okay,
I'm not positive, I think he did get that, so I think we're talking about that other 5%. and what
Got it.
Yes.
percentage that he earned.
I got it.
Okay.
It's on page 11.
Thank
I
you
got
for
it.
clearing that up. So that would be one tweak we would want to keep in mind going forward in the evaluation, is just figuring out how much of this he'll receive out of 5% for this. Okay. So based on the conversation, the building was not completed on time, but they were within budget and has the physician team ready to transition over. I am not sure if you want to look at a percentage now or just kind of get a number in your head, and then we can discuss it all at the end and move on to the next key area. What would you prefer? Because I know it's all got to add up, and you may weigh one more heavily than the other.
So we're looking at a total amount for us to consider of 5%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Since it's a relatively low amount, without getting into halves and fractions, maybe we just go through it and then we
Yeah.
can come up with something. Is that
Okay. No, that is
Suitable?
perfect. I just want to make sure all hearts and minds are clear. All right. The second key result area is financial. The goals and objectives were meet financial goals. And the measurement criteria is successful audit with no going concern. The time frame for this was FY 2022 as well, July 2022 to June 2023. The comments on the side say, in addition to achieving financial goals, well, I won't get into all that. I will just defer to Bruce to let us know if we're able to answer these questions.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, unfortunately, you guys will not approve the audit, but I can tell you we have the final draft, and there is no going concern. The audit is clean. It'll be presented at the next board meeting, because our partner was unable to attend tomorrow's board meeting. I'm sorry. I'm going to step up.
Just stay.
I'm sorry, the audit for 23 fiscal year is complete. There is no going concern. It is unmodified opinion. Unfortunately, our partner was unable to be here tomorrow for the board meeting, and the board has always liked to have that partner there to ask questions. So we're going to do probably a separate board meeting, a special one, or if they can wait until the March meeting, we'll do it at that setting. But I already have the draft. Dr. Webb and I have to sign in blood before they release the final PDF version, and we do have it in hand, and it meets all those qualities that you discussed.
Okay.
And as far as financial performance, we beat the budget by about $2.3 million from the audit, from the fiscal year budget. So we beat the budget. There were some numbers that we hit and some that we didn't hit, but the net income line we did hit. So, I'm a finance guy. I'm going to tell you that we hit our numbers. We missed a few, but we hit a few, and in the end, we hit the income statement number, right, Christy? So I think we did fine there.
Okay. Any questions?
Just a quick question about the audit. So in theory, if we were approving this, Madam Chair, we would approve this a while back. So the question I have is about the audit.
Yeah.
The audit seems to be out of sync in timeline with what we're asking me to approve and then what actually we're supposed to be measured on. So
Could I make just a recommendation or a thought? Is that you would point towards the prior year audit, because it's never going to be available to this board until February, which doesn't fit in with your schedule. So either you look at the prior year audit, or you wait until this one is there and make an adjustment for it at that time. We're going to run into this forever, because you're supposed to do his eval.
We're doing 23, so let's
Right.
keep it
Yes.
to 23.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Agreed.
Okay.
Okay. So per our finance guru, we met our financial goals with a successful audit and no concerns. Any other questions or concerns before moving on to the next one? Okay. The next key result is quality. There is no goal and objective stated right here, or do I have a typo
I was confused on that as well.
on mine?
The next two don't have a goal or an objective that I saw
Sorry about that.
on the top.
Oh, so the goals and objectives in the minute say that maintain Joint Commission accreditation and NCQA certification for PCMH. The measurement criteria is the CEO to provide an update to the board annually on the Joint Commission readiness and status of accreditation and certifications. This is to be completed by the end of each fiscal year. Time frame ending June 30th, 2023. Do we have anyone here who can speak to the accreditation? These goals. Yeah. You can take my seat.
We are currently Joint Commission accredited. We go into the window in September for a review. So what that means is that anytime from September on, they can enter the doors and do an inspection of us. So we are ready for that.
Doctor, just a qualifying question, I guess, about quality. Is that the only indicator of quality? And what does that mean?
No, there's different quality ratios that we can measure and look at.
This, as it looks to me, is fairly nebulous. I mean, it's one marker, and to me, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. What does it mean in terms of quality of care for our patients? That seems to me to be something we ought to be addressing somehow.
Yes, well, we actually have a quality department that addresses the things like you're saying, like sepsis, hospital-acquired infections. We look at all of that.
I know I'm moving forward for the next, but it seems to me that's something we ought to be considering because that's an important component of what we do here.
Correct. So
Okay.
we do monitor those.
Okay.
What does an accreditation mean here? When you say we are currently accredited, what does that mean?
Well, what that does is that actually ties into CMS and revenue and payers and stuff. And so if you're not accredited by Joint Commission, then there are certain payers that won't send their patients to you because you're not meeting the standards that are set out by CMS. So really, Joint Commission works for
But
CMS.
those standards, are they just financial standards?
No. They're quality, finance, making sure that you have processes in place, like for your credentialing for your providers. There's like a whole bunch of things.
That would
they
be
go
very
through.
helpful to
Right, they
understand
go
that
through-
and see where we
They go
rank.
through tracers, so they'll come in and they'll take a patient's record and they'll follow that patient's record throughout the system to make sure that we're connecting and that the patient is getting the care that they need and that's appropriate.
Without getting too weedy, would be helpful to have an idea of what that report is all about and where we stand and what we could do to be better.
Right.
And where we're doing outstanding work, which I'm sure is a significant part of it.
Correct. And our last Joint Commission inspection, we did really well on. And they have different areas that they highlight and tell you whether or not you're meeting the standard. They have a matrix that they use in order to
That would be helpful for us to have at our next meeting.
Right,
that
and I think
information.
that's a good 2024 piece is we'll be able to say,
That's right.
is the measurement standard actually addressing the quality? And that's what
Right.
we're really trying to understand. Okay.
Good.
So that
Thank you.
was helpful. Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone else have something to say? Oh, okay. Okay, and so it looks like for that one, we met y'all are laughing at me. It's feeling like high school. There's something on my face. Okay, so it looks like we met that goal for quality. Would we all agree based on what was said?
I would agree. Again, I think just to underscore, and I think we all agree that the criteria by which we are evaluating feels to me less specific and a little loose. And so that's the reason I'm trying to make sure that we're answering specifically the questions.
Right.
If we are maintaining the Joint Commission, make sure that we are accredited, did we meet that or not? And it sounds like the answer is yes.
Right.
But just to underscore, I understand there are things that are outside of our controls, probably like having some different budgetary concerns with meeting or not meeting financial goals. But at the end of the day, I think we need to be very clear, are we answering the questions that were set forth in these goals or not, regardless of if the city gave us $10 million more dollars or not, regardless of building, regardless of, some of these other issues. So I guess that's what I'm just trying to understand with this committee is, are we reading it by letter of the law, which states these are the goals, even though some of them may be more nebulous, or not? I understand the background. I think that's helpful for us going forward, but I think that's what we're being asked to achieve today, right? Is to just evaluate.
Right, we're doing the fiscal year 23 evaluation. I think a lot of this will be brought up and remedied in that 24 discussion because, again, we'll be able to make sure that there's alignment. And right now, for some of this, it feels like it's partial alignment, but we met the goal that was written out by the committee and approved. So I think for 2023, I think the conversation is very helpful. I'm totally aligned with what you're saying, but just it may not make things as clear as we would like. So I understand that. The last one is customer service, goals and objectives, maintain hospital consumer assessment of healthcare providers and system scores, measurement criteria, maintain patient satisfaction scores. And this also was on the FY23 timeframe as well. And I imagine you can tell us if we are in compliance with that. Do we have these scores? What does that mean?
Actually, we do have the scores. We track that monthly. We look at our HCAP scores, our CG scores, our ambulatory scores. So we track those monthly.
It's great that we have those scores, but what is missing here is if I look at this, it says rate the hospital 1 to 10 increased 0.29%. Were we at a 2 and it went to 2.29? Were we at a 6 and it went to 6 plus? Where are we? Because that helps us move forward in looking at what the next year's goals are. If we were only a 6 and it went up 0.29%, okay, that's okay. It's not great.
Right.
What we need to be more specific about where we were, where we're going, what the goal is for next year or this coming year, and did we meet that goal? But we can't know that with this kind of a response.
Correct. And again, for that next meeting, we can say attach the following documents. So when Ms. Lester sends us the packet, we can look and see the information for ourselves and ask those questions. So I think we are all completely aligned on that. For customer service, it looks like we met that goal as well. And so since we have gone through all of the goals that were recommended, it almost seems like it's easier to look at the whole set of 4 and say what percentage of that do we want to assign to that 5%. And so I can open it to the floor. If it's any context, last year, I know the percentages are different because it's 5 and 10, but the committee recommended an 8.5% out of 10. Based on that.
So they weighted the first 3 areas a little heavier than they did the customer service. Mm-hmm. So they weighted the first 3 at 3% each, and then customer service at 1%. Mm-hmm. So if we were following that pattern, then we would be given.
And the question is that the right mix? I mean, it just seems to me customer service is pretty darn important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd suggest 1.25 on all of them if we're going with 5%.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
The question I have though is in these January 13th meeting notes, the motion was made to accept the maximum percentage for each goal as discussed. That doesn't mean that we have to use those same criteria for this year and then change them for the next year, does it?
No, that was done by the committee. So, I mean, we could do it 1.25%, like the board chair said, or if you think customer service should be, 4%, it's whatever we would decide.
I would defer to the chairman's remarks because we're talking about 23.
Right.
So we can discuss at a future date or later on in this meeting, whatever, what we want to do for 24.
Okay. Perfect.
But I'm good with that equal division.
Okay.
Let me go back to, I hate to go back, but let me go back to customer service. For some reason, I thought we took I thought we had a setback with leapfrog, and this says we improved, so was it? I just remember some conversation around leapfrog and there being scores weren't as good, so maybe my memory is cloudy.
I think I saw that in the materials that I reviewed for the marketing, I think. That would have been associated with the marketing. There was a specific note in the 14 documents that mentioned, so good reading. But I don't know. Do we have somebody who could address that?
And it may have been, I may be on the wrong fiscal year. I could be thinking about 22.
Well, because leapfrog comes out several times a year.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thank you. Leapfrog comes out several times a year, so I can't, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to articulate that. I'd have to get that information in front of me to look at when that happened, because I know we did decrease, but we also increased back on Leapfrog.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? So just for me, and again, I went to law school because math is not my strong point. It looks like 3 out of the 4, he met the committee's goals. So I don't see anything wrong with giving the full 1.25% for each of those. And then on the growth area, maybe since it's not on, not on time, you could do 1%. If you wanted to go lower or higher, equate the full percent, that is fine too. So that's what. So that's 3.75, just doing. The math, no, it's not C. What is it?
That's 4.75.
I gave my disclaimer. So
That would be 4.75.
thank you, board chair. Okay. Do we want to can we have a motion for a vote, to vote on this? What is the procedure? Okay, yes. Are we ready to vote on this? Do we want to have any more discussion? And we're right on time?
This is
Yeah.
actually your recommendation to the full board.
Oh, excuse me, yes. Just for clarity, this is our recommendation to the full board, that we would recommend what percentage again?
4.75.
4.75.
Of the 5%.
Percent raise out of the 5% total. All in favor?
Aye.
Can I make a clarification? You said raise, it's actually discretionary bonus.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, so we are making a recommendation to approve 4.75% discretionary bonus based on the fiscal year 2023 performance evaluation. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstent?
Who made the motion? You were asking for a motion, so I need somebody to make a motion. Somebody say.
I'll make the motion.
Sorry.
I
I'm
second.
so sorry.
Your second first, okay.
Seconded by Christie.
Okay. And now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I miss it?
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, I'm sorry.
No. We want to get
And
it
now-
right.
And now is all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any oppositions? Okay, so our recommendation to the board is the 4.75% discretionary bonus. And we will work with Ms. Lester to schedule a follow-up meeting for 2024, as well as get that other information we needed so when we go to the full board meeting.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
On this self-evaluation that Dr. Webb did, it says, please circle the applicable performance factor. He never circled any of them on my sheet. Was that appropriate or inappropriate or what? I think a self-evaluation basically ranks yourself and says what you've done.
Right.
At what level.
Right. Now, I would agree, and that may be a question for
Moving
HR.
forward, yeah.
Because it looks like they provide context, but just not that amount. So making sure that's clear for 2024.
If you are reporting on this at the board, I think it would be appropriate for you to also make some comments specifically around the opportunity to make some positive changes going forward based on the prior evaluations being a little less specific, and the opportunity to make these tied to specific metrics and having a little deeper process with timelines going forward. As I think that will give the board, hopefully Dr. Webb,
Yeah.
and the public, ultimately, a greater level of confidence that we are following procedure, we are doing things at a high level, we are implementing best practices for this great hospital. So thank you.
No, definitely. We will definitely include those comments. All hearts and minds clear. Anything else we want to discuss?
So again, just for clarification, we have dealt with, and you will report to the board on the 23 evaluation. But we will now await some additional information and have another committee meeting to discuss the accomplishments and goals, et cetera, for 24, which will lead the path towards getting us back on track for appropriate timeliness.
Correct.
So that we don't go through this again.
Correct.
At the end of 25.
Correct.
Okay.
Definitely. And we'll get those dates out ASAP, and just all the notes we've taken, we'll bring them back so we can have a good conversation about it. Oh.
On another note, I would like to ask if this committee would also, in the next meeting, review the compensation package for the CEO in terms of if the hospital is meeting its obligations. I'd like for us to dive into that a little bit in this committee. Retirement and some of those other things. I just know it's something that may be a liability if we are not meeting, particularly, Chris, when you were talking about if we owe and we haven't paid, opportunity for interest on those type of things. So I think that it'd be a good place for this particular committee to dive into that and provide some information for the entire board. And so, Bruce, I may ask you to be able to provide some information around retirement package and compensation and what we agreed. So the board has agreed this is what we should be doing for retirement. This is what we should be doing in terms of that. But I'm not sure if we have executed or if we are in total agreement with the CEO on what that should look like. So I think this subcommittee could look at that as we prepare to move forward and make some recommendations to the full board. Is that something that we can pull together, Bruce?
I mean, you guys would have to give some guidance, because I don't know specifically. I know what we're funding, but I don't know what he believes should be funded and what the board has allowed. I mean, I only see what's in the contract.
Okay.
One of the documents that I have is the IRS Intermediate Sanctions Tax Record Bill of Rights Law, blah, 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 at the Nashville General, and it specifically shows exactly what is being paid and in which categories. This is a year 2021, so it would probably help to get this updated, in addition to the fact that we've got some older data with Pearl Meyer. So I guess the question I have and would like clarification on with this committee, and I hear what you're saying, is are we looking at setting goals, or are we looking at ultimately contract renegotiation and when the termination of that contract would be? Because I think the most important thing, and I hear what you're saying, is we've got to get these goals quickly set for the next year before we go off into third-party procurement and of information and data, and then trying to potentially contract renegotiate. So I think I'd like to see us follow the timeline of importance here, but definitely make sure that whatever is in a document, an updated document like this, to your point, Frank, is actually being paid. So that should be an easy thing to do, but let's make sure that we focus on the 2024 goals so he understands what is expected and can, set his path appropriately. Thank you.
May I ask 2 clarifying questions?
Yes.
First, I understand that you will not be in attendance tomorrow for the board meeting. Who would be reporting on your behalf?
Are either of you, is everybody going to be at the board meeting? Christy, I can type everything up and send it to Ms. Lester and she can get it to you. But I would appreciate that since I can't make tomorrow.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
My second question, and it may be to Chairman Stevenson, is will the committee be the same members for the evaluation for fiscal year 24 so that I can go ahead and get that on the calendar?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else? Need to head out. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All right. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all so much.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.